to another Summer Stories. Today we have with us my friend Ragnar. Hear about his story and how he connected to Mountain View. So Ragnar, you and I met. You'd been coming to Mountain View, I think, for a couple weeks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was pretty new. I've been here for a couple weeks, and how I met you guys, and part of what drew me in was just how welcoming you guys were. And what I especially liked was the come and meet the pastors after the service at the starting point. So that's kind of how we linked up and been coming ever since. But how I ended up at Mountain View, well, I'm from Ohio originally, and I grew up on a Black Angus farm. I have 6 younger siblings, 3 boys and 3 girls. Like a lot of people who are out here now, the military brought me out here. Fort Lewis was where I ended up, and I decided to stay and start a family. Served, all over East Coast, Alaska, this coast, deployed a couple times to the Middle East, and that was kind of the extent of my career in the Army. So yeah, I wound up out here, and that's where I met the kids' mom. I decided to stay here and start a family. Gunnar is my oldest. Femke is the next oldest, my only daughter. Then I have Killian and Soren. And people probably have seen me walk in the halls, maybe frazzled, maybe not frazzled on that day. The youth activities and youth and kids ministries are what was a huge draw for me here as well, and that's what keeps us here.
You found us online? Were you just driving by?
Oh, sure.
Or what?
Yeah, so getting out of the military, obviously you need some work, right? So I had a few odd jobs here and there in the area, but ultimately I ended up at Department of Labor and Industries, which probably a lot of us know is really just literally right across the street from here. State job, and I've been there probably 7 or 8 years now. Prior to coming here, I drove by the church all the time. I wanted to have a place for the kids so they could have, good values, good Christian values growing up. Like I said, I drove by here all the time. We had checked out a couple other churches. I grew up in a pretty strict Lutheran religious background, Midwest Midwest kind of stuff.
Did you go to church your whole
So growing up, my mother had remarried, and the person she married, he was very, very strict, religious, authoritarian type of person, right? So for me, and we did go to church, it was very strict, very strict religious environment, I guess I would say. So that had turned me off for a long time towards the, religious side of Christianity and
institutional church.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. But I think especially growing up, on the farm and, in quote-unquote nature, I always had kind of a spiritual connection. I feel like, for me, that's where my relationship with God came from, was from that. And I did have a grandfather, up there with us. And I think maybe what introduced me, so to speak, to God and just spirituality and Christianity was we had a talk literally in a field one day, just taking a break or whatever it was, when I was probably 9 or 10, I don't remember. And, we got into the good spiritual stuff and kind of who or what God was and that sort of thing. And, the most crazy thing happened that still stands out to me in my mind is literally field by field, like you can see the sunshine go from field to field, just traversing across. We were on a hill and looking out as very, idyllic, like what you would see in a movie or something, right? And that happened, and that was moving to me, and I think that's what really got me started on personal relationship with God, despite the strict religious environment that I was in. I did have a break for a while, doing the military thing and just moving around, and I did feel like I was just kind of floating around, just going from work or task to task. In the back of my mind, I knew I always wanted, there was, I guess I would say maybe a longing, I did feel like I needed that back in my life, and I certainly knew I wanted a good Christian environment for the kids. Regardless, that's definitely what I wanted. So, and like I said, I had driven by here every day one day just got the courage. I was like, you know what, I'm going to go in and check it out. And I did. My very first time here, I did the starting point, took the tour,
Did you bring all the kids with you on that first Sunday?
No.
Okay.
The first Sunday I came and checked it out myself,
Yeah.
And some churches are weird, some churches are not. This is one of the not ones, thank goodness.
Appreciate
So,
that.
yeah, you're welcome. That was, I think, beginning of January last year. So it's been about a year and a half we've been coming. Ever since that first time, we've been coming ever since.
Yeah. Kids are super active in youth group and and kids church. But what are some of the other things that, other ways you've engaged in Mountain View in the last, I guess we're a year and a half now, right?
A part of why I felt like I was kind of floating around going task to task, especially when I got out of the military, that's always a huge, hard transition a lot of times. One of the ways I kind of navigated through that, or maybe got over that in a way, so to speak, was to get involved, and for me, Mountain View has been just exponentially a huge part of getting involved and getting plugged back in. So things I've done is to, participate as much as I can in helping out with things that my kids are involved in. So youth group activities. We went to camp. I helped out as a camp counselor last year. Just whatever I can, really. We had the mission trip to France.
Yep.
That aligned very much with things I believe in and like to do and skills that I have. Anything.
You're leading up a new initiative.
Habitat. Yeah. Habitat for Humanity. We're literally just starting up a partnership, hopefully, with our local Habitat here in Tumwater. Good for community relationships, congregation, relationships, and also an excellent precursor to, if anyone's thinking about an international mission trip, that's exactly the type of work they'll be doing overseas.
So what drew you to Habitat, and what attracted you about that particular program and ministry?
That type of ministry, I'm a huge believer in, I guess I would say, service to others. I think, and this is my personal experience, it brings me the most joy to when you're doing things outside of yourself that ironically or however it works, it really works on you internally, and that's just super interesting. So giving back into the community, that was a huge draw for me. And I love that with Habitat, they have good, solid Christian values, and that's what they were built on.
So you started attending, and you jumped right into serving and being engaged. So for someone else who might be in that same boat, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, so for sure when you come to a new church, or even people who've been attending for a while, you can still feel lonely at church, So my advice to anybody new or feeling that way was, you already took the leap of faith to come in and check it out, Just go ahead and take it another step further. You can take it in baby steps, One thing that the church here has that is a great way to meet people and to just take that baby step to get involved and branch out is your classes after the services. I think they start up again in fall or something.
Yeah.
But, there's a little something there for everybody. Even if you have the slightest interest in something, I would just encourage somebody, sign up for one of those, take one of those, check it out. That's kind of a next baby step kind of thing that you can do to put yourself out there, plug in, get to know the congregation, and then from there, just keep branching out. So
thanks for sharing your story with us today.
Yeah, of course.
And hopefully, you'll be around. So if you see Ragnar, feel free to ask him any questions. Much more there than we can do in this short amount of time. But
sure.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time to share with us.
All right, I appreciate it. Thanks.